I'm Rich Pizzello. I am NEHA's executive director, and we are so excited to have you for our 32nd annual family camp. One of the greatest things that came from the pandemic, and we have to say great because there's always something good that can come from something that's unfortunate, is the ability to do this. Prior to the pandemic, we were not utilizing technology. I think many businesses, many individuals, and families were not. And this gives us an opportunity for A, you to meet us, and B, for us to meet you. It could be really overwhelming if you've never been to a NEHA event, or maybe you've been to a NEHA event before, but you've never been in a camp setting, and you have questions about what to expect. What is it going to be like? How do my kids interact? We're hoping that tonight can create a safe environment for you to ask those questions. There's no silly questions that you have. As Sarah mentioned, we are going to stay around afterwards for a little bit, but it gives a chance for you to get to know each other virtually before we get to see each other later this month. So as I mentioned, this is our 32nd annual family camp, and we're so excited to be up in Moultonborough, New Hampshire at Geneva Point Center. You are going to meet so many individuals that help to keep camp together. So first, you met Sarah. Sarah is our program director and really one of the leading forces behind the staff side of camp. Also, our programs manager, Diane Bruno, the dynamic duo between the two of them, have really helped and put a lot of time into the planning of family camp. Really, once family camp ends, family camp starts being planned for the next year. I'm also going to do a couple of introductions. If you don't know these names, you won't get quizzed at the end. But Glenn Roy, Glenn, if you can wave there. Glenn Roy is our nursing director. Glenn started camp 32 years ago at Camp Mechuana in Maine, and then it moved to Geneva Point Center in Multiple, New Hampshire in the early 2000s. So Glenn, thank you for your dedication to camp. Glenn is a nurse at the Maine Treatment Center over in Portland. We also have Emily Bisson, who is a nurse practitioner at the Dartmouth Medical Center Treatment Center. Emily, thank you for waving. You'll be hearing more about both Emily and Glenn's role on this call, but these are important names for you to remember as well. Andy Stone, our all camps activity. You'll be seeing Andy very energetic when you are not energetic early in the morning to help our counselors and to help you in a camp setting. Unlike if you've been to a NEHA event where we're in a hotel, you come down in the morning, you eat breakfast, it's in a hotel room. This is very different. This is much more relaxed in the sense of you're outside, you're enjoying nature, you're with each other, you're walking to and from where the meals are. So you'll be hearing more about Andy as well. Our camp committee and counselors, many are on the call tonight. If you wave to everyone, you'll be seeing them, and we'll be going through with orientation in person. You'll be seeing their names quite a bit, but so many of these individuals volunteer their time to help put camp together. I'm looking at some of these faces, and some of these families have been around for 2 decades plus, if not three, in terms of helping to put camp together as well. Camp is made possible by so many individuals. First, I want to thank our bleeding disorder and hemophilia treatment centers, who many of them throughout New England give a contribution to help make camp affordable. We will never turn anyone away because of financial reasons. NEHA subsidized 95% of the total cost of family camp to make it so it's accessible for everyone. If for whatever reason you are having trouble paying the registration fee, without questions, we will scholarship you in with the help of your treatment center. So thank you to the treatment centers, and you'll hear more about them at camp that are helping to support it. Our industry sponsors, these are pharmaceutical companies and specialty pharmacies, help to contribute to make camp possible. Individual donations that have come in, and most importantly, our walk. Camp has grown over the years and prices have increased substantially. Our Unite Walk, which you'll hear more about at camp, helps to make camp possible for all families to attend. If you have questions, and Sarah will have a slideshow to showcase some of the imagery, because it's hard to imagine what this looks like without being there, is the in porch or the meeting house. Once you get there, you'll kind of see where they are. They're not too far apart, but those are the best places to find an answer. Also, volunteers and staff wear, there'll be olive green shirts this year with role model on the back. So anyone that you see in an olive green shirt that says role model, you can ask those questions. Any question, and many of us will have walkie-talkies, will radio each other if we don't know the answers, or help guide you there. But that's a brief overview, and sure, in terms of the leadership of camp. So I'm gonna turn it back over to Sarah, who's gonna go into the mission, intention, and theme.
Thanks, Rich. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with our PowerPoint. There we are. Okay. So, actually, I'm going to stay on this intro slide for a few minutes here, and then hopefully be able to advance the slides okay. I think most of us are a little rusty on Zoom after using it for so long. So, bear with us for anything technical. So, as Rich said, I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of why it is that we gather at camp and why camp is so important. So, the mission of camp is to build knowledge, self-care, and community in a safe, supportive, and engaging camp environment. So when we're planning camp, we're always kind of going back to that North Star of why it is that we're doing this, and making sure that we are focused on that mission, and really connecting back to that. And one of the things I think really makes camp unique is that it is in an environment that's different from, I think, from where most of us exist in our day to day. It is a special place where people can both relax and really come together as a family to focus on care for their bleeding disorder without a lot of outside influences. Another thing that really makes camp special is that it's intergenerational. I think everyone here can really empathize with the idea that bleeding disorders don't affect just the person who has a bleeding disorder and caregivers, but just the whole family. And so we make a lot of effort to create programming that is designed around each member of the family, and that gets each person involved. So from the actual people who are affected to caregivers to siblings, everyone has a role. We also welcome some grandparents to camp, and some other family members, because we really want this to be an experience where the whole family can thrive and increase the competence and care for their bleeding disorder. So Diane's going to go through a little bit of kind of how we break up programming and how kids are able to do their sessions while their parents are off doing something else. So I'll kind of save some of those details for her. But I do want to talk a little bit more about kind of why it is that we come to camp. And I think a big other purpose for camp is around building independence. So I'm sure many of you have seen and you've heard about self-infusion class. That's something that our medical team leads through the support of several HTCs around New England. And we really want to create a space that gives kids the chance to build independent skills, both with infusion and then also going off on their own without their parents close by. I always hear from parents when they talk about their camp experience that thing that they appreciate most is that they're in an environment where counselors, other families all get it. They understand what it means to have a bleeding disorder and some of the concerns that a parent might have letting their child go off on their own. This is a space where we do a lot of preparation for our counselors. We have a medical team there. We've got lots of other folks who are able to create a really safe and supportive space for all family to participate in camp fully. And that independence piece is so important to what we do. At the end of camp, our goal is that you feel an increased sense of confidence and competence. So a lot of the things that we do connect back to that. And everything that we do at camp is intentional. So from the theme of camp to our morning circle to activities, everything we do really has a lot of thought and purpose behind it. And I have to give just another shout out to our camp committee and to our counselors. We have a whole team of people who work really hard in the months, really the year leading up to camp, to create all sorts of things that are really meaningful and intended to provide a great experience for the whole family. And so I hope that you see that intention as you go throughout the week and can really understand kind of why we do what we do. And if you ever have questions about that, please, as Rich was saying, reach out to any of us on staff or volunteers to better understand kind of why things are done the way that they are. So we talked a little bit about the mission and purpose of camp. And one of the other things that I would just leave you with is really being mindful to come to camp with an open mind. For many of us, as I said, this, is probably outside of experiences we have on a daily basis. This may be your first time going to a camp environment. This may be the first time that you're letting your child go off with counselors and do something that's without you as the caregiver watching over them. And so we really encourage you to come to this with an open mind. One of my favorite sayings is always, you put into this, or excuse me, you get out of something what you put into it. And I think that that's a good thing to keep in mind. Know that this is a really supportive environment that you're walking into. There'll be opportunities to take some risks, to challenge yourself, to do other things that might look a little bit different. And we really hope that you're able to embrace that and feel supportive in making those decisions to do something that maybe is a little different from your norm. We've got all sorts of experiences that we hope will support that, from archery to wood shop to, I mentioned, infusion class, to a night walk for some of our older kid groups. So there's a lot of different things that will help provide experiences to kind of step outside of your comfort zone. And then lastly, I just want to share our theme. So we've mentioned this a few times. I know it's come in some emails, and you're going to see this carried over a lot throughout camp. So this year, our camp committee selected the theme of Jurassic Journey, Your Adventure Awaits, meaning dinosaurs. So you can see, I know Rich has a couple dinosaurs in the background. I think Diane's got some as well. We are really excited to integrate a dinosaur evolution theme into this year's camp as we kind of think about the progress from, how far we have come. We're going to be integrating that into the camp this year. So you'll see a lot of dinos, and we encourage you, if you have dinosaur costumes, if you have dinosaur shirts, other things like that you would like to bring to camp. On Friday afternoon, we'll all come together for what we call our all camp activity, which is typically where people dress up in their whatever the theme of camp is for the year. And we really encourage you to bring fun dinosaur themed things. I know some people also mentioned like the Flintstones. So you can definitely get creative with it. And while we're at camp, we'll also have some arts and crafts and other things for you to create costumes. So if you're thinking, oh gosh, I've got so much else to do before I go to camp, including packing, I don't have time to go and think about dinosaur apparel, that's okay, because we'll also have some at camp for you as well. So with that, I'm going to go ahead now and pass it over to our medical director for camp, Emily Bisson. I know Rich introduced Emily earlier. Emily is from the Dartmouth Hemophilia Treatment Center, and I'm thrilled to welcome her to share a little bit more on self-infusion class and our adventure infusion and a few other things related to medical. So Emily, take it away.
Thanks, Sarah. Welcome, everybody. I'm super excited to see you all at camp later this month. It's coming up real fast. I have been at camp for, this is, I think, my 13th year at camp. And I'm really passionate about the sort of transformation that I see in kids and in families that happens at camp. And I'm a better healthcare provider because of what I have learned from the community at camp. I also, full disclosure, live with someone who has hemophilia. And so I see that piece of it in my home life too. So I can, one of the things that I really find most important about camp is that we're figuring out how to live and thrive with our bleeding disorder, not have our lives be defined by that bleeding disorder. So that really colors a lot of the ways we approach some of the education and support we provide at camp. Glenn's going to talk a little bit about the infusion classes in a little bit. And Glenn is the powerhouse behind the medical team. So much credit to all of his effort and time and work over the years. He is a force. When families come to camp, we have collected information from all of you, and those of you who have been to camp before know that we also ask for medical information about your child's bleeding disorder from their treatment center staff. So we have a basic information about what to do if there was an emergency for your child. And we review basics with the counselors. So the counselors are aware of who has a bleeding disorder, just in case, they can pay extra attention to something that might be a routine injury, but we'll just keep an eye on it. They also are aware of medication or environmental allergies for all of the children in their group. The medical care that we provide at camp is pretty much basic, basic triaging of medical care. Aside from that specific to your bleeding disorder. So that means that I need you to bring any of your medications that you use on a regular basis, or even as an as needed basis to camp, because we do not supply even somewhat routine medications for the community. So if you have a prescription for like an inhaler or for a blood pressure medication that mom or dad is taking, all of that needs to come with you, just like if you were traveling on a vacation with your family. I will say that camp is in the woods. We've had very lovely pollen filled days here in New Hampshire this week. Everything is coated in yellow. So I would encourage you, if you're somebody who has environmental allergies, to consider bringing your antihistamine of choice, whatever that might be, Claritin, Zyrtec, what have you. And to also bring other medications that you or your family might use. If people have frequently take Tums, the food at camp is camp food. It might not be quite what you're used to eating at home, and the like. We provide a sort of small stash of over-the-counter products, including Benadryl and Tylenol, but it's really helpful for us if you can, if you regularly use those things, for you to have your own supply. There's about 350 people who will be on site at camp when we're there for the week. So that assistance is much appreciated. What I definitely need you to bring is your bleeding disorder medications, both the ones that you use on a routine basis, but also those emergency doses that hopefully your treatment center provider has had a conversation with you about, and that you would take with you anytime you are traveling or going away. Hopefully we won't need them, but I don't have extra bleeding disorder treatment products for somebody who gets injured at camp. It is a bleeding disorder camp, but there are many products on the market in lots of different dosage forms. And we need you to bring the one that your treatment team and you have selected for your family member with a bleeding disorder. If you are someone who keeps their medication refrigerated, there are several refrigerators in the health center, which we will direct you to on arrival, but it's in the meeting house. And you are more than welcome to come and put your factor medication or any other specific medication that needs to be refrigerated in those refrigerators. We will have a bunch of Ziploc bags, and we ask you that you throw your doses in a Ziploc bag, put your full name on it, and then there's sign-up sheets on the fridges, and we just would like you to put your name and what's in there, like that you have put your factor in there on the fridge door, so that we can just have a sense if your child comes in looking for their medication, I don't have to go through 3 fridges full to find their bag. That's super helpful. You should also bring your supplies to administer your medication, whether that is butterfly needles, port supplies, or your injection supplies if you're using a subcutaneous product. But please bring those supplies. You may have specific ones that you or your child likes, and we have lots of supplies, but we may not have the ones that you like. The other emergency meds that I want you to think about is if someone in your family has an EpiPen that needs to come to camp, please. We don't have like a universal EpiPen available at camp. So please, please, please bring your EpiPen or any other additional emergency medication. We generally have you hand that to your child's counselors while they are with the counselors. And then when you pick up your child for lunch or for the evening at, before dinner, you get it back from your counselor so that the EpiPen is not someplace, 100 yards away from where you are when you need it in the moment. So please continue to hand that off daily at camp. My notes just disappeared on my phone. Sarah, what else was I supposed to?
Emily, if you just want to share about Adventure Club Infusion on Thursday night.
Oh, perfect. Yes. So the other piece that I do at camp is I help with the Adventure Club, which is our teen group. Again, I mentioned at the beginning, one of the things about camp is that we do some challenge by choice activities where we sort of push and stretch outside of our comfort zone to sort of build that competence and self-confidence in managing our bleeding disorder wherever life may take us. In prior seasons, that has involved things like infusing on the water, because if you can do it on the water, you can probably do it at your kitchen table or on the stadium seats at your sports game if you get injured. So the teens themselves at the teen retreat that NEHA hosted in March decided that their challenge this year was they wanted to try to do their infusions at night on a night walk. So we are gonna roll with that. And I'm excited. I'm excited that they picked it. And so we're gonna work on using some headlights or headlamps, or maybe some, maybe by the fire before we actually head out on the walk to see how we can negotiate that and make that possible.
That's great, Emily. That was everything on your piece. And so I think we can pass it over to Glenn now. Thanks so much. Oh, Glenn, are you still there?
Do you need me to run through his stuff?
I was going to say, yeah. Oh, there you are. There.
Sorry, I apologize. I was having troubles unmuting.
No problem. Thanks, Glenn.
I welcome everybody to Family Camp. As Rich said earlier, it is the 32nd camp. It started as a camp with maybe 8 or 9 families, mainly from Maine and New Hampshire, and a couple from Mass way back in 1992 or 3. And it just grew and grew, and it's been amazing to see. At one time we had 80 families, and now post-COVID we're what, close to 50 families coming this year. And one of the biggest achievements, and I can't say enough for all the help Emily's given, because she's just as much of a force in the medical team, is everyone really starts to learn to be independent and learn how to, some of the very first time a child learns to stick themselves is at camp. They may be learning at home, but they, in this environment with a lot of support from their friends and their counselors, they start to overcome the fear, and they actually have many of them have gotten their first stick at camp or done it. And we have an award called the Big Stick Award if your child makes an independent stick. That's without a nurse actually making the poke. Your child will make his own poke. We will guide him in how to make that poke. And we have to get a blood return. And they infuse saline. There are times if your child is due a dose of factor, we can arrange times for the factor to be given, and that the parent in that case can set up a meeting with us so that they can give the factor with their child and us. We sometimes have done it in infusion classes, but it's best to make an appointment to do that because there's so much going on during the actual infusion class. And we also, Emily mentioned that we have the medical office. So often before meals, especially breakfast in the morning, many kids get their prophy before they start the day. So they may come to the infusion center where it's a nice, quiet, clean place to give it. And we will have, you know, Emily and I will be there to help with the infusion, and a couple of other nurses if they need help, if the parents need help. Then we can make individual appointments for further learning outside the classes. So regarding the color groups, we'll have a list of all the different color groups, and they're all based on ages. So if they're in the 5 to 6 year old group, they will learn, which I think if I remember right, used to be the purple group. They will learn and watch another counselor actually infuse and learn the steps to an infusion. Then we have some fake veins called bay cuff that we can work with them to practice sticking. And actually that's what the picture up is showing right now. This young man has a bay cuff on the table. Here's a fake vein. We also have a fake arm. If the 5 to 6 year old, and we feel is ready, wants to try to stick themselves, we can do that. And then usually as they go up in age, by the time they're 8, they're really starting to learn to be more independent in sticking themselves. So most of the time you don't see big sticks earned until they're about 8 years and older, but we have had a few 5 and 6 year olds. And then this continues all the way through Adventure Club. What we recommend is that the parents do not come to the color group classes because sometimes the kids really want to prove themselves to the parents, but it also can increase their stress level. So we have learned that the kids have been with their buddies in their color group and their counselors who have older young adults who learn to infuse many times, often at camp, are really good role models to these children, and they've been very successful. Now, there will be opportunities for other classes if you want to come to the class with your child, and that is on Wednesday at 3:30 to 4:30, the arrival day of camp. And again, there'll be a family choice 4:30 to 6 p.m. on Thursday. That family class is for parents whose child has started to learn how to stick themselves, and the parents have maybe started with their hemophilia center or at home with a nurse. So that class really is if you've had some experience and we're there to help reinforce it. And then there's an adult class on Thursday from 3:15 to 4:15. That class, maybe you have no experience as an adult, but you're trying to learn how to stick your child or even how to access a vein. So we have the bay cuff again to work with, the fake arm. And if you have a partner that you're married to, or is your partner, whether you're married or not, as long as it's your partner at home, you can stick each other, but you can't stick a friend. And the reason for that is basically infection control. We have to make sure that if there was an accidental poke or something, that there's no contamination between a non-family member. So that's why we have to follow those guidelines. And so, and then we will have sign-up sheets, and you can also come and talk to Emily and I, and we can, and some of the other nurses saying, I would like some more practice because I want my child to earn a big stick. We can do that with you, because the color group rotations only have an opportunity in the 2 days of camp to go through once in their rotation. But we're more than willing to help you again at other times. And so there'll be a sign up for that, and talk to the nurse, and we'll work with you to make sure you can hopefully get your child to get a big stick. And we do have to cut it off at 2 o'clock on Friday, so that we can, because then at 2 o'clock on Friday will be the big, and they'll talk about it later, Emily and whoever, about the big family event that goes on that afternoon. In the meantime, that day, we'll be getting the awards ready for that evening and giving their big sticks. And we also have certificates for the other, when you're just even learning to how to self-infuse. And whether you've worked with Baycuff or something, you'll get a certificate. The other thing we're going to do is have a little table, because some kids are still learning how to do Hymn Libre. Maybe the parents are giving it, but we want them to become independent. And so we won't actually give Hymn Libre, but we can have them learn how to draw up saline in a syringe, so they can start to learn how to draw up that. And then we can take a syringe without any fluid in it, and just have with the needle that you give the sub-Q injection to stick themselves, so that if they are not, if they're having difficulty sticking themselves, or want to know what it's like if they were to do it by themselves and become independent, we can help them with that. But they will not be given any med with the Hymn Libre. So we will have that table available too. Emily, do we want to? Emily, do you have anything you want to add that I'm missing?
Yeah. So Glenn, I'm sorry, and everybody, I'm sorry. I failed to. Oh, does that have an echo? Is that better? I meant to discuss this earlier before Glenn gave that excellent explanation. So we focus on learning self-infusion at camp because we really believe that even though for some folks in this community, the self-infusion is a much less frequent experience, or the need for peripheral infusion is less common than it was even 5 years ago. We find it to be really important. And so even if you are a family who does not routinely infuse at home, I would like you to consider learning, and I would like you to consider allowing your child to participate in this process. And that's true for anybody with a bleeding disorder for whom there is a home infusion treatment option. That is not all bleeding disorders, and that does not reflect all of the families that are coming to camp who have a family member with a bleeding disorder. So there are a few congenital bleeding disorders that don't have a home treatment option, either because there is not a peripherally infused product available, or because you would need to receive medication, like a medication infusion in the hospital setting, or only utilize oral medications to treat your condition. So on those medical forms that we sent to your treatment center, we also asked your treatment center if it was appropriate for your child and or your the parents to participate in an infusion class. So there are a few families who are coming to camp who don't have a need to learn peripheral infusion, self-infusion skills, because unfortunately at this time there is no treatment product for them to administer. And it's a big skill to learn, and it's not without risk. So we take the stance that it's the risk benefit in that scenario is probably such that it doesn't make sense for us to to teach self-infusion skills, especially since they won't be utilized. And we have the same approach for siblings as well. There are lots of invested siblings who don't have a bleeding disorder themselves, but it's not really appropriate to train lots of kids to be utilizing needles for treatment that they don't need to be able to give themselves, and probably not appropriate for them to be responsible for infusing their sibling. So if you have specific questions about that, I'm happy to have a conversation with you about it. But that has sort of been how we have addressed this, and have thought about that policy quite a bit, and feel like it sort of manages the risk, and also allows those who need to and might benefit from having those specific skills, the opportunity to practice and gain them.
You'll see many of your, in some cases, you will see some of your nurses from your HCCs that you're very familiar with, and that helps us as well because they know their kids. And I know we have nurses from Rhode Island and Connecticut and Maine and New Hampshire with Emily this year that will be at camp.
Thank you, Emily and Glenn. That was really helpful. And I did just want to put a plug too. You may have seen in the email Brandon sent on Monday. It included a link for people to sign up for infusion class, specifically for the adult and the family infusion class. Anyone who's or any kid who is eligible from their providers to do infusion class, they'll rotate through infusion automatically as part of their color groups. But adults or families, if you would like to sign up, please do so in the link. And I think Diane just added it to the chat. Thanks, Diane. We are in the past, we used to have people sign up on site. We had a board when you arrived and you registered then. This year, we're asking people to register prior to their arrival. That's really helpful for our medical team. So there's a really thorough explanation too on that form about each class. So if you have any questions, you can refer to the form, and you can also reach out to us with any specifics. And if you don't have Emily's information, we'd be happy to help connect you with Emily or Glenn if you want to discuss anything related to infusion further. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Rich, who's going to talk about some of the logistics of camp. And first up on Rich's agenda is everyone's favorite, food. So Rich, can you tell us a little bit about camp food and what to expect?
Yes, we love to eat. Meals are an important part of camp. All meals are going to be underneath a very large tent. So all meals will be outside. There is some space inside as well that we can utilize, but we're encouraging everyone to sit outside for the meals. It's camp food. I would say have low expectations because you will be impressed. They have really come a long way, and many have said it's probably not your top restaurant choice food, but they do a really good job offering variety. There's a salad bar for those that are looking to eat maybe a little bit healthier. I believe it's every meal. And then there are other options as well. So if you indicated that you have allergies, we've tried really hard to work with Geneva Point to label everything. And if you have dietary restrictions that are outside of gluten and dairy, we will be working with Geneva Point to arrange that for you as well. Bring snacks. We ask that there's no nut. So peanut butter, if a child or you can only eat peanut butter, we ask that stays in your cabin, that you don't take that to the common spaces just to be preventative for those that do have allergies, but bring snacks with you. We encourage you to bring the snacks. If you are eating in your cabin, you're in the woods, there are critters. clean up after, don't leave anything out. We've had situations like that as well. Just be mindful. If you've never camped before as well, I'll go over a little bit. This is not Gilligan's Island. We're not going to leave you stranded in a roof that's leaking, or at least we hope not, or you're going to be in a tent. All the cabins that we are going to be in are rustic. Thank you, Sarah, for the wonderful picture display that you have. But they're adorable. They're cunning. They have windows. They don't have air conditioner. We encourage you not to bring an AC. But they do have curtains. Some of them have bathrooms. Some of them don't have bathrooms. But the hope is that this is I would say a typical cabin. There's bunk beds, and kids love them. It's only a couple of nights that you will be away in this setting. And again, if you haven't stayed in anything with this, it's certainly an experience. And so many kids say this is one of the highlights, is going back to the cabin, walking at night. That's an example of one of the restrooms that is in there. So again, not fancy. You're not looking at a Four Seasons, but you are certainly looking at accommodations that will give you the necessities that you need in terms of a sink, a toilet, and a living space. There is electricity as well in all of the cabins, unless you are tenting and you don't bring equipment for that. But there is limitations as well, in terms of it is a camp setting. If you bring things like a hair dryer or other types of things, those are discouraged because the fuses can be blown. Fans. Some of the cabins do have fans. We ask that you just bring your own fan. If it can get hot, especially given the weather, if we're having weather like we are this week, knock on wood. But definitely bring a fan with you as well to help circulate the air in there. Wi-Fi, there is Wi-Fi on the campus, and it is free and complimentary. It's spotty. The best Wi-Fi, if you do need to connect to the internet, we can show you once you get there. You can ask one of us as staff members or as volunteers where the best places to go, but really it's the meeting house and or the in porch. But you can access certain Wi-Fi. Same thing with signal. There is a signal up there, but it probably will be spotty. You're not in the middle of nowhere, but you are in a wooded place on Lake Winnipesaukee. But it is an opportunity to unplug. You come into family camp to meet other individuals with a bleeding disorder and to really immerse maybe in something you've never done before. So we do ask to be respectful. We try not to be on phones unless we're communicating with each other, to be on phones in your cabin or out of the sight of kids that are rotating through the color groups. Bug spray goes a long way. We will have some bug spray, but we cannot have enough of bug spray. We won't have enough of bug spray for every single person. So we ask you to bring bug spray with you. It's really helpful, especially for the campfire late at night. Those mosquitoes are hungry up in New Hampshire and love a bleeding disorder blood. So please bring your bug spray. You can never have too much extra. Again, we will have some, but please bring that as well. There have been, or there will be going out as reminders, a packing list. Go through the packing list. You don't need to bring everything on there, but there are tips and tricks that we've had seasons families put together, helpful types of things that you can think about. The terrain is not flat. It's a campground, so there is some hills and some rocks, but you won't be climbing Mount Everest to get back and forth to things. But I will say, wear comfortable shoes. Closed-toe shoes are encouraged, but if you want to wear other types of sandals, just be mindful that you will be walking not on grass the entire time as well. If you have any questions about the packing list, by all means, you can reach out to us if something's on there that you don't know. If you do forget something, we may have it, little toiletries and other types of things, but just go through that list so we can make sure that you are comfortable during the entire time. One of the highlights, besides coming to a bleeding disorder camp, is the ice cream and coffee shop. So yes, there is an ice cream shop and a coffee shop on the campus. It's called Winnie Scoops. Every family will get one ice cream coupon, which is good for a cup or a cone. They have wonderful flavors. It is not just a soft serve. It's all All, I believe it's Giffords ice cream. They may have changed that, but there's an array. Once you use the the ice cream coupon, which is complimentary, you can go every night if you want. You can go every day. You can go every meal. There's just a cost associated with that, and you can pay for cash. And I don't, Sarah, do they take credit cards? I
They
don't
do.
know.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Yes.
Or you can do what Glenn does, which is get a coffee or a ice cream coupon for the week, and I think you get
Oh.
unlimited. So
Yeah.
your ice cream dreams can come true
Yeah.
at Geneva Point.
If you think you love ice cream, once you get to know Glenn Roy, he will put you to shame. This man will eat probably a gallon or 2 or 3 ice buckets of ice cream the entire week. A man after my own heart there. So there's ice cream. Winnie Scoops also, there's a small gift shop, and they have some toiletry stuff that you can buy too. Coffee coupon. This is based upon feedback that, especially there are long days. Good coffee is really where it's at to help give you for those that drink coffee and or tea. So we also give all counselors, staff, volunteers, and family members, and those that drink coffee in your group. A 6-year-old won't be getting them, but coffee coupons. So if you're coming from campus Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, so you get coffee coupons, 1 per person for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So Winnie Scoops usually opens around, Sarah, 6:30. We can confirm that.
Yeah.
And then you can go and bring your cup. You can bring a reusable cup, and that will be good for you to get a really nice cup of coffee as well. So that's going to be provided to you complimentary as well, so you don't have to worry about the 2 necessities, which is ice cream and coffee. Meal program. When we are together, we try to make announcements. The announcements are a way to inform you. Sometimes, many times, we have to be flexible at camp. Things change, whether it's weather, whether it's schedules, whether it's circumstances. So the mealtime, there will be announcements that will be made. If you don't know them yet, but the fabulous Michael de Grand Prix usually, well, always MCs the announcements, which are also a comedy show. So get ready for that. But those will be where there are announcements and growth opportunities for junior counselors, campers, and you'll see kind of where that goes on as well. Also, Andy Stone, our activities director, will also be making announcements there and doing some morning activities. Awards. For those that are returning to camp, if this is a milestone year for you, so that means not attending camp, but volunteering in a volunteer role, junior counselor, or volunteer as a parent, please let us know. Every year we try so hard, and it's our best ability, but we always seem to miss someone, and we don't mean to inflict hurt feelings because it's not intentional, but please help us if you think it is. We ask this in job form as well. If you think this is a milestone year, let us know, and we'll look at our records and then reach out. But if you think it is, don't be bashful. We'd rather you say it to us, hey, it's my 10th year, and then we can have that conversation that if there's a discrepancy there, because we want to recognize your great achievements. Weather. If there is inclement weather, which we're hoping, again, we had a week like we just had where it's sunny and nice and warm. The chapel, barn, and porch, once we get to camp, you'll see these are all good places to go, and Geneva Point staff will go over this as well. There could be thunder and lightning. I've been going to camp for well over 10 years now, and I've only seen thunder and lightning a couple of times. So I'm hoping, but it does happen. But hopefully we won't have to deal with that, but we will go into that when we get to camp. We're also going to be utilizing a new text service this year to communicate in the event of an emergency. So you'll receive a practice test before camp just to let everyone notify. Last year, for those that were there, we did have a rainstorm, more like a monsoon as you arrived to camp. And we did have to implement a couple of these procedures based upon what Geneva Point was saying. So we learned a lot from last year. It can't happen 2 years in a row. It can't. So we're hoping for this year that won't be the case, but the text policy will be there as well as a way to communicate. We do have our staff, volunteers, counselors, junior counselors follow the SAD rules. It's a best practice. This is a family camp settings. We're just asking to be mindful about sex, alcohol, and drugs, to really think about the setting and where you are, and about the role model that you're setting for other families and campers. So we asked our counselors, staff, and volunteers to sign that as a guidance so that no one is drinking heavily and then they can't perform the next morning in terms of helping to, participate in terms of the activities and being the best on board, because we want to make this a magical experience for everyone that's there. And I'm just going to mention this briefly. We'll go more into this, but there will be a service dog or two at camp this year. We asked that a service dog is a working dog. And we ask that you talk to your kids in particular about this, because I get very excited when I see a dog. But a service dog is a working dog. They are not to be touched, even when in passing. It's going to be really hard, especially for kids, to ignore the dog. It may seem harmless to do that, but it can really disrupt what their intention of job is to do. Always ask the adult who is with the dog in terms of the guidance for that if you are confused about it. And of course, I think this goes to anyone that has a dog. Speak to the owner, not the dog, in terms of what's going there. But we can go more into that about you. But there will be plenty of times when the dog is off duty for you and your kids to interact with. So with that said, Sarah, I'm going to turn it back over to you, or to fill in anything that I missed there.
Thanks, Rich. That we gave you a lot to cover, so I appreciate you going over so many logistics. And I know that we're coming up to 8 o'clock, so I just want to say, if anyone needs to jump off, we understand. I know this is this bedtime for a lot of people, and maybe for adults. But and we'll send a recording out afterward. I did just, while we're kind of pausing for a moment, wanted to share a couple other kind of key buildings that are around camp. The barn is a place that we often use, especially for our adult educational sessions. It's a historic barn. It was renovated by Geneva Point in the last few years. It's a really wonderful space. And it's just behind the barn is where our campfire ring is, and where those who tent and RV stay. The meeting house entrance, you'll hear us refer to the meeting house a lot. The meeting house is the largest and newest meeting space. This is the place that we go in the event of inclement weather. Those who were at camp last year experienced the deluge of rain that we had, about like 4 or 5 inches in a few hours. So it was unbelievable. Sarah Page, I just saw your reaction to that. And that's exactly what happened at camp. And that was our reaction too. We couldn't believe it. And so this is the place that we all gather in the event that we have inclement weather. And I do just want to also give a shout out in our meeting house. You'll see our fabulous camp decorations committee helps incorporate the theme by using decor spread throughout camp. These are a few, some of the decorations from the last few years. Last year was a space camp theme. 2 years ago, we were celebrating camp's 30th year. So it was all about celebrating together. And so you'll see a lot of fun, decorative things around camp. We probably use more cardboard than an Amazon warehouse over the few days that we're at camp together. So and this is another picture. This is inside of the meeting house here. So all spaces that you will become familiar with if you're not already, and that you'll have a chance to kind of explore while we're at camp. So our final piece for the orientation tonight is an overview just on activities and color groups. So Diane is going to talk a little bit about that. Diane, I will pass it over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Sarah. So I'm so glad to see so many people on tonight. So thank you all for being on. I'll just quickly go through kind of what a day at camp might look like and try to put some context behind some of the words that you're hearing so that it makes more sense when you arrive at camp. So when you arrive at camp, there is a big green field in the center of camp, and it's called the center green. So when you arrive at camp, one of the first things you do after you put everything in your cabin and you put your medicine in the medical office is we have a big meeting on the center green where everyone gets together and we talk about what's going to happen for the rest of camp. So in the morning, each day we have that same thing happen, which is called morning circles. So basically at morning circle, after breakfast, everybody circles up. The kids tend to gravitate towards their counselors, who they will meet when they first do that circle in the beginning of camp on the first day. And then during morning circle, we'll do some fun activities with Andy, and he will kind of guide us in some fun morning stretches and activities. And then from there, that's where people kind of disperse into their different areas for the day. So before that happens, there are a couple of exchanges that will take place. When you arrive at camp, as you can see in these pictures, each kid will receive a bandana that coordinates with the color group that they're in. So we ask that the kids wear these bandanas each time they go with their color group. It makes it very simple for their counselors to identify which group they're supposed to be in, and really gather them up for transitioning to a different rotation. So make sure that the kids are wearing their bandana. Lots of kids get very creative. They wear them on their heads, on their ankles, around their necks. So feel free to wear your bandana however you want, just as long as the counselors are able to see that. Another thing that happens at this time is each child will have a bracelet that also coordinates with the color of their color group. So those are actually for the parents. So the parents will hold on to those bracelets and they will give them to the counselors when they drop off their child. So basically what's happening there is an exchange of who's taking care of the child. So when you give the colored bracelet to the counselor, now the child is in the care of the counselors. And then when you pick up your child, you'll take your bracelet back from the counselor. They'll give it back to you. And that means that you are now responsible for your child. So that will happen anytime that the kids are going into their rotations. Rotations is another word that you'll hear a lot at camp. So rotations at camp consist of a few different things. They are arts and crafts, wood shop, archery, waterfront, infusion. Please feel free to drop your child's or your own favorite rotation in the chat because everybody has a favorite. So when your kids go off with their counselors, they will have a schedule that's already set up for them. So they may go to archery first, and then they'll transition over to waterfront. And so during that time, the counselors will be responsible for the children while they're at camp. Then when you go back to pick them up and you receive that bracelet back, you will then be in charge of your child's supervision. Also, we just want to reiterate that once the children are out of the counselor's supervision, we just ask that any parents or caregivers are mindful about where their children are on the campus. A lot of times kids want to run around with their friends or they end up in somebody else's cabin, and that is totally fine. That is part of the experience, but we just want to make sure that at all times kids are accounted for. So if your child is going with another family, make sure that that is a conversation that you have had and every child is supervised by an adult at all times. All right. So another word that you heard was color groups. So color groups are groups that have counselors that go with them. So basically there are purple group, orange group, yellow group, blue group, and red group. And then there's the Adventure Club kids. So your child will be assigned to one of those colors based on their age and any information that you gave us in their registration on Jot form. So if you asked for them to be with a specific child that's within their age range, we took all of that into account. And we put them in a color group, and then their counselors will also be part of that color group as well. We also have childcare that will be on site, which is led by the wonderful Amber Dawn. She's one of my favorites at camp. She is 100% going to do the best job to take care of your child. So childcare is for children that are between the ages of 0 and 2 years old. So rotations in color groups start when they're 3. So if you have a child who's 3, you can expect them to be rotating through those things: archery, waterfront. If they're 0 to 2, they'll spend the day with Amber Dawn in the childcare room, who has the best setup. She takes the kids outside, they do bubbles, they play at the water table, and you'll drop them off just like you would at any other daycare. Sign them in, sign them out. Also, if your child has any special things that they need for childcare, keep that in mind. So if they have a lovey that they need in childcare, make sure that you pack that for them. I know that Amber Dawn a lot of times appreciates if you have your child in their stroller and they take the nap in their stroller, you can just wheel that down and they can take the nap in that. And if you need anything for an infant in your room, please feel free to bring that on your own as well. We do not have extra pack and plays and things like that. So if you need to bring those, you would have to bring those on your own. All right. So when children are in rotations with their counselors, we have adult educational sessions that will be taking place. So kids will be going through all of those rotations. They leave with the counselors, and then the adult educational sessions usually take place in the barn or the meeting house or under the meal tent. All of this will be specified in your program when you receive it at camp. We also have wrap sessions, which are very important and helpful at camp. They're a huge benefit. This is a time when you and your peers, so a lot of times there's an all men's group and all women's group, that get together and you talk about either things that are going on that are causing you stress, that you would like advice or ask other people's opinions on. If you just have questions about camp in general, if you have questions about your child's bleeding disorder or their plan at school, lots of times these things are brought up during wrap sessions. Of course, we always defer to the treatment center for any medical advice, but we offer as much guidance as we can in a peer-to-peer support setting. So those wrap sessions happen early in camp so that you can hopefully make some good connections with others. So we really want people to take full advantage of that and introduce themselves. Really, like Sarah said in the beginning, you'll get out of camp what you put into it. So we would love for everyone to really go to all the adult sessions, including the wrap sessions at camp, so that you can get to know each other. Another thing that you will see at camp for the older campers is something called night walk. So night walk is something that happens after campfire, and it's only for the oldest color groups. That will be specified in the program as well, which groups will be going, and it will also be announced during announcements and at campfire. At that time, the kids will meet with their counselors and they will head out in pods to go on a night walk through the woods. This has been happening for years. It's risk managed. It is a very fun experience. My kids have done it. They think that it's the best thing ever. They learn things during night walk that they can't learn at any other time. So we really encourage you, if you're able, to allow your children to participate in that night walk. Also, we do have one time on Thursday that is called Family Choice Time. So Family Choice Time happens in the afternoon on Thursday. And basically we have a plethora of different options that families can sign up for on that day. You'll see big white posters that will be on the meeting house porch that will show what the family choice options are. So there will be one big white poster that says kayaking, one big white poster that says family archery. So what you'll do at breakfast on Thursday is you'll go and you'll sign up for one of those family choice options. And then during family choice time, you would go to whichever of those options you signed up for at breakfast time. Family choice time is meant, it was actually started by feedback from the community that they wanted to have more time where they could participate in the activities at camp as a family. So that's why it started, and it's been a really great fun thing that continues to happen at camp. One other thing that happens during family choice time is one of the family infusion classes. So if that is something that you'd like to do, you can sign up for that as well. All right. I think I've went through most of it. If a couple things you can look out for in the lead up to camp. We will, for any child that's in childcare, be sending out waivers that will need to be electronically filled out before camp. So keep an eye out for that. Also, for any parents that are new to camp, it's different from a family camping trip. It's more open and free flowing than school, but when you're supervising your children, we just want to make sure that you always are being responsible and making sure that your children know where they are at all times. And I think that is just about it. Did I miss anything, Sarah?
No, Diane, I think you covered everything. Thank you for your
Yeah.
thorough explanations on everything. And I hope you all are enjoying some of our slideshow here as well to depict some of the things that we've talked about, especially if you've not actually been to Geneva Point previously. So I have a few more photos that I thought I would just share as we wrap up. Waterfront is a big piece of camp. People love it. There's usually canoes and kayaks, and excuse me, not kayaks, but there's lots of different like things that are down there to have fun with at Waterfront. And then I'll just share a couple other things that happen at camp. Are all camp activity. That's where people dress up in their costumes. It's intergenerational. Everybody comes together to participate in really fun kind of field day style activities. So you can see some pictures here of people dressed up. One year we did kind of a country western theme. Here's the Bassa family looking awesome in their costume. So you can see these are the types of things that people usually bring to camp, kind of thinking about that theme. So this year being dinosaurs, we can't wait to see what kind of fun stuff that you come up with. So just as we wrap up, as I mentioned, I want to give an opportunity for anyone who wants to stay on and ask questions. You're also welcome to connect with us separately and reach out. Camp is such a magical experience. It's something that we really hope people feel that they can totally embrace while they're there. So if there are things that we can do to help make your experience better, please reach out to us. There's so many different fun activities that take place. One thing too, I did just want to also share, we have some pictures of our campfire, which happens at night. Andy Stone leads that, and our counselors and campers get up and sing fun songs. So there are just so many different aspects of camp. We hope that you really see this as a growth opportunity for your children and for yourself to embrace this experience. I think it's testament to the fact that we have many people on the call who have been coming for decades. This truly is an experience where if you dive in and make the most of it, I think you'll soon become one of those people who stays for years and years to come. So I'm going to end our official orientation now, just so we can be mindful of timing. But I do want to open up if anyone has questions. I know there's been some good questions that have come back and forth in the chat. Thank you to our camp committee and our counselors who've been helping answer some of the questions. I see there was just a point about bringing umbrellas and raincoats. Yes, absolutely. I can't understate the value of a raincoat. Especially because we do still do some activities outside in the rain if it's not thunder and lightning, and it's a safe place to be able to do that. So our biggest thing is, I think, preparation really helps you make the most of your experience. Check-in time, great question. So it's from 1 to 3 on Wednesday. We are encouraging first-time families to arrive between 1 and 2 so that we can help you get registered, checked into your lodging space. And then we'd love to give you a tour of campus so you can familiarize yourself with a lot of the places that we've been talking about. So again, if it's your first time attending camp, we would encourage you to arrive between 1 and 2. With that being said, if you're an experienced camp family and you don't mind coming a little bit later, say from like 2 to 3, that will give us a chance to be able to check in those new families first. And then if you're experienced, we can check you in after 2 and then you'll get settled into your cabins. That's not a hard and fast rule. It's just something that we're recommending because we do have so many people who are joining us for the first time. So again, 1 o'clock for those who are new, 2 o'clock is recommended for those who are experienced. Yeah, Glenn, thanks for mentioning at the waterfront, there's a lifeguard on duty, and lots of fun things to do down there. Any other questions, or anybody from our camp leadership team, from our camp committee, have anything else that you want to offer before we close up for the night? Well, I'm giving a minute for questions. I'll just share a few more photos that are fun.
You can
Yeah.
ride your bikes. We will encourage everyone to wear helmets, just like we want to teach good, safe rules. So if you or kids bring a bike and stuff, I would please bring a helmet. There's a dirt road that goes all around the center green. So it's a great place for kids to ride bikes. And the traffic is supposed, cars really aren't driving around that once everyone's settled in at camp.
Yep, great, thanks, Glenn. Excuse me. Yes, Crystal, I just saw your question. For anyone who is not infusing during Adventure Club, they still very much participate in Adventure Club infusion, including they're usually paired with somebody who is infusing to help gather supplies. And then they go with them to help them with the process. So we do try to include everyone who is part of Adventure Club is included in the Adventure Infusion component. And we've been doing that each year with the different themes that we've had, and that has always been successful. So, and that Adventure Club Infusion is led by Emily, and we will do a separate orientation. It's a quick kind of 30-minute parent meeting on Wednesday after everyone arrives, just to help remind people about what the Adventure Club Infusion looks like. There was a question about a video last year. We did have a camp slideshow. Oh, thanks, Rich. So quick. Rich, was that the slideshow or was that the general camp video that you put in the chat there?
That is the video that gives an overview of camp. So it's from a couple of years ago, so it's on our website. I think it gives a little bit more deeper than the slideshow. But there is a slideshow that's put together at the end of camp as well, of all the photos from that. But this video that I just posted is more of an overview of camp and what does camp mean.
Yeah, and shout out to Laura and Fu Tham, who put together the slideshow each year, which is a really special piece to our final night on Friday night. And also, I see Kathy just offered a great tip about bringing a rope and clothespins. That absolutely goes a long way. It's a great suggestion. I know there was a mention about fans. You can definitely bring fans if it's a hot week. It's really nice to have some fans in your cabins. So we do encourage that as well. There are 2 new ice machines at Geneva Point this year. So you could, if you're interested, also you could bring a cooler and have an ice machine. Yes, Crystal, I see you're clapping there. That was very exciting when we got the news of 2 new ice machines at Geneva Point. There's also a really great little general store that's right before you get to Geneva Point called JoJo's. They have great sandwiches and other kind of essentials. It's a little grocery store. It's a really great place to go. There is a washer and dryer at camp as well if you need it. So another thing, if you've got a lot of dirty clothes and you need to do laundry, there is some directly on site at Geneva Point. So, boy, the ideas are coming fast and furious in the chat. I feel like I can't keep up here, but it's awesome to see the suggestions, especially from those who have been coming. And I love the idea of bringing a clothing rack for wet towels. Absolutely. There are some hooks in cabins, but as anyone I'm sure can attest to, there's never enough hooks to hang wet things, especially when you have children who seem to accumulate them in ways I don't even know. So if I definitely would recommend bringing a hook or rack, I guess, if you have one available, container for water, refillable. We definitely encourage bring water bottles. We'll have water pitcher, their like big water oh gosh, like jugs, excuse me, throughout camp that Geneva Point sets up. Hydration is so key when you're at camp. We want people to stay hydrated throughout the time that they're there, so we'll have water stations throughout camp. Flip-flops for the showers, another great tip, and a shower caddy for those who maybe went to a college or school, kind of where they had a shower caddy. You can bring that back, use that for camp. It's a great suggestion. And as Glenn mentioned, I think we mentioned earlier too, not all of the cabins do have showers in them. They have bathrooms with cold water and a sink with cold water and a toilet, but not all have showers in them. So there are showers that are close by, but do be mindful of that. Absolutely, Laura, with the extra snacks for those who are picky eaters or don't finish their meals in one sitting. And I will say, just kind of as a kind of preview for camp, we're actually doing a session this year with a nutritionist from Maine Med all about picky eating. So if that is something that you are interested in, we have a dietitian coming to camp this year who's doing a session on that. Emily mentioned a small duffel and backpack. In previous years, we've given fanny packs, bring those. This year, our camp giveaway item is actually going to be a little sling backpack, so everyone will receive one. Chairs for campfire is super helpful, especially portable ones that you can easily pack up and bring. I feel like I'm like a game show host, kind of like throwing out all these things as I get them. So this is great. I love that people are making all these suggestions. And as I said, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. If you are a new family or you're just kind of like wanting to know more about camp, you may have already heard from Diane or from one of our veteran camp families to connect with you and answer any questions that you have outside of orientation. So be looking for that. If you ask to talk to somebody, we are making those matches this week. And so you should be hearing from one soon if you haven't already. Just a final reminder too about if you have received either an email or a text or phone call from us about paperwork, it's a state law from New Hampshire that we have to have immunization records for everybody on site at camp. So if you have not, anyone under 18, so if you have not submitted your immunization paperwork for your child, it is critical that we receive those prior to camp. Also, I know Diane's been reaching out about camp payment. Rich mentioned our camp scholarship. If you have any concerns about paying for camp, please reach out to us. Our camp scholarship exists so that everyone is able to participate in camp regardless of the cost. So please let us know so we can make sure that that helps. A few other things I'll just mention. Carolyn, great tip about it is definitely cool at night. And I will say too, if you're like me and the mosquitoes get you every time, a pair of long pants and long sleeve shirt go a long way. Flashlight headlamp at camp, also a great tip. If you've got a headlamp too, I think that that's especially helpful as you're kind of navigating between cabins. Oh, Kathy, great suggestion around bringing a marker to mark your kids' towels, especially if your kid might leave something behind. That way you make sure you know where it is. And As Nancy recalls from a previous year, please don't bring an air conditioner to camp. While that's a great strategy and definitely something we appreciate, the ingenuity, the camp electrical system is not strong. So it can like do fans, cell phones, things like that, but it really doesn't do well with anything more than that. No hot plates, no air conditioners, no, I mean, even like some, big hair products and things. But I think the biggest thing to remember too is like this week, like let yourself go. You don't even need to shower. I mean, maybe use a baby wipe, but we really want people to just like enjoy themselves and not feel as though they need to have that you need to be presenting yourself in a formal way, embrace kind of the outdoor nature of this and that it's all about simple living. Great question about a CPAP machine. Yes, absolutely. They can handle a CPAP machine. Actually, 2 years ago, they had a whole camp that, or the whole building that actually had folks using CPAPs. It was a camp, for folks who needed CPAP. So I know for a fact that they can accommodate that. If you didn't already put that in your camp, in your job form, if you can just reach out to us ahead of time so we make sure to have you in a cabin that has some extra electrical, or we could bring an extension cord. Just want to make sure that you're supported for your CPAP. Okay, great. I saw another mention about ice machine. Yes, 2 new ice machines at Geneva Point. That's probably the greatest thing since ice cream at Geneva Point. So big deal. Any other questions? These are
Sarah,
for points. Yes, Emily, thank you.
I'm not sure I totally made this cool. So clear before. If you have medication, this is not a camp situation where we're collecting your medication. So if you have pills, medication for yourself, for your kids, please keep that in a safe place, discreetly in your cabin, out of the potential for little wandering hands to find it if you have young children. But you do not have to bring that to us. You also do have to bring your factor to us, but some of you have medication that shouldn't be kept above like 72 degrees, and it may be warmer than that in your cabins. And so we're happy to have you come and store it, and you can freely access the fridges to get those medications. But just wanted to be clear that you don't have to turn in all of your medication, but we're happy to provide refrigeration because you cannot bring a refrigerator to your cabin.
Thanks, Emily. Yeah, I know Diane had suggested too, you could bring a cooler as well. And as I said, there's ice available.
Don't store your factor in your car. The cars are going to overheat. And I wouldn't recommend keeping any meds in a car. So just kind of like you do at home, like Emily said, keep it out of reach of the kids in the cabin.
And Sarah,
Yeah, Rich.
one of the things too, we are the first large group to be at Geneva Point. So Geneva Point sets up all the cabins, opens officially for the season because we will have the entire campus. So we're not sharing it with another group at all. Our staff and volunteers will check the cabins. There will always be something that may not be right. A screen broken, the water may not be working. Geneva Point has done a good job where you can call, I believe it's a form you can fill out too for a non-emergency, and they do try really hard to address any issue that you have inside of your cabins themselves. So if you do have an issue once you check in, you can come to see us or really contact Geneva Point. There's someone there all the time.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. For those who have been to Geneva Point previously, they've actually spent the most money in the last year around their facilities, upgrading a lot of their spaces. So, while it's not going to be kind of Hilton-like accommodations, but it will certainly be, you'll see that they've been making some improvements. And we actually have a housing coordinator it's a volunteer role, and they help manage housing issues between Geneva Point if there are things that come up. There is a labyrinth area at camp if you're interested in walking the labyrinth. It's behind some of the cabins. We can show you where that is. The labyrinth, it looks the same as it has in previous years. Crystal, you might also be referring to, we have been talking about moving NEHA's bricks, which are commemorative bricks that are dedicated to all sort of different folks in our camp community, and also serve as a memorial for some folks who are no longer with us. We are planning to move the bricks, but we have not done that yet, and we're actually going to be doing it in the fall. So that it won't be happening this year at camp, but is something that we are working on with a volunteer to do sometime in the fall. These are great questions. Any other questions before we sign off for the night? Thank you all so much for sticking with us. Really appreciate it. As Rich said, virtual orientation was born out of COVID, when we had a lot of new policies and things that we were updating people on. We wanted to help get everyone on the same page. And we found that this was a really useful tool to be able to share information leading up to camp. We will do another orientation at camp on site. We'll go over some final reminders and things, but our hope with this is that it really helps just set a tone for what to expect going into it. You'll also, as I said at the very top, you'll be hearing more from Brandon Green over the next few weeks. He'll send reminders about the packing list. We'll send some weather updates if we're expecting inclement weather, so you can better prepare for that. We'll send out a recording of this. So all sorts of things that you'll be hearing from us about in the coming weeks leading up to our arrival at camp. So just once again, I want to say thank you so much for our camp committee and for our leadership team, our medical team. So many people go into making camp happen. And there's so much institutional knowledge and experience within this group. So thank you to everyone who's contributed immensely this year and over the decades that camp has been in existence. We're so grateful that you're joining us on this adventure for this year. Don't forget your dinosaur themed wear gear. And we will plan to see everyone soon. So have a great night. Thanks again for joining us. And we can't wait for our Jurassic journey to commence soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.